Marcy, Skylight, Gray, Cliff, and Redfield done. Now the long walk back to the lodge. 3:55 a.m., just signed in. Santanoni Range, let's go. The wind is whipping here in the Seward Range today. Just finished the Macomb slide and my legs are on fire. Well, I fell victim to the floating logs again. Made it to the top of East Dix. Peak number 3 of 5 for today here in the Dix Range. Avalanche Pass. On top of Rocky Peak Ridge. It's like a hurricane up here. Rain and wind here on Tabletop. Whiteface, number 6. Muddy day here on Street and Nye for number 7 and 8. Sunny and blue on Haystack. Algonquin, up in the clouds, number 18. Gothic's number 22. Panther, number 38. Allen, number 45. 7:12 a.m. Big Slide, Adirondack, 46er. You're listening to the 46 of 46 podcast. February 18th, 2020. After a very snowy and windy morning here in Lake Placid and the entire High Peaks region of the Adirondacks, I decided that I wanted to get out on the trail since these snowy conditions make for a fun time in the woods. So after lunch, I packed up my gear and headed to a small peak to take in some snowstorm-like conditions out on the trail. Since it was a weekday after all, I figured it was the perfect time to go and enjoy the views on top of one of my favorite little mountains in the Adirondacks, Little Owl's Head. So off I went. Owl's Head is a local favorite here in the Adirondacks, and for good reason. It's a small peak clocking in at only 1 mile round trip and 475 feet elevation gain, making for a perfect after-work hike or a hike for the whole family. This trail, however, is on private property and is closed to the public Fridays through Sundays. Therefore, when the weekday schedule allows, it makes for a great choice to get in the woods and take in some High Peaks views. I packed up my van and drove the 8 miles from my house towards Keene to the Owl's Head trailhead. The roads were quite rough this afternoon thanks to the wet morning snow, so as expected I was the only car at the trailhead. The Owl's Head Trail is closed Fridays through Sundays due to hikers' poor parking practices in the past that often blocked homeowners from getting to or from their houses up there. Tisk tisk. Since the trail is on private property, the owners graciously open the trail to the public during the weekdays, and one should take extra special care when hiking over here, and parking as well, to not block any roads and park as close to the side of the road as possible, or even out on Route 73. I have heard rumors of this trail being closed permanently, but thankfully that hasn't happened yet, and this little gem can still be enjoyed by the public. I do know that the town of Keene, the Adirondack Land Trust, and the DEC have begun working together to create a new trail, along with some parking, on an undeveloped piece of land over there, which you can see from Route 73. But as of now, I don't know anything else about that, and is clearly not done, but hopefully sometime soon. After parking and getting out of my van, I was immediately met by strong winds and snow blowing everywhere. I scoped out the trail and could tell nobody's been here for a few days, so I grabbed my Tubbs VRT Flex snowshoes and strapped in, grabbed my backpack, closed the van door, and started up this half-mile trail to the summit. It is 2:10 in the afternoon here on Tuesday. I'm going for a little hike up Owl's Head. Small little mountain, only accessible during the weekdays. This trail is actually closed Friday afternoon to Monday morning due to disrespectful hikers and disrespectful people's parking habits in particular. But it's a weekday, pretty snowy today in the Adirondacks. Perfect time to come on this little mountain. And it appears I'll be breaking trail, though this gets a lot of use, so the trail's pretty obvious. Right from the start, the trail was obvious to navigate, though covered in 6 to 8 inches of fresh snow as it makes its way climbing up through an open pine forest. So right off the bat, the trail climbs at a nice rate through a nice pine forest here. Spruce trees and pine trees around. The trail, the snow is kind of wet. Had a little bit of a mushy last few days here. So the snow's heavy, but fortunately, it's pretty easy to break through at the moment since this trail is obvious. Pretty windy today as well. I'm currently wearing my wind protection, which I don't typically hike in, but I figure why not spare some cold breeze from the wind. As I walk through this section, my foot sinks in about 6 inches here on this fresh snow. Probably can hear the wind coming. Nice and windy. The wind was truly the story of the day today and was clocked in on some higher peaks this afternoon in the 50 to 60 mile an hour range. So needless to say, the wind was pretty strong and constant. So right from the start, this trail's pretty steep. Just starts climbing pretty much the whole way. So time to raise the heel lifts on my trusty tub snowshoes. Get those raised. So much better. Game changer, these heel lifts, if you don't have them on your snowshoes. Highly recommend. The beauty of this trail is that it doesn't take long, only 0.1 miles to come out onto the first ledge with excellent views of Pitchock, Sentinel, and the whole Sentinel Range looking to the northwest, as well as Cascade and Porter looking southwest from this first ledge. And then you can see Route 73 down below. The perspective this mountain gives of Route 73 is quite unique, and it's fun seeing how the road swerves through the mountains below. Around this first ledge, 0.1 miles into the 0.5 mile ascent, the trail was no longer visible thanks to the wind blowing the snow around the open ridge, along with all the fresh snow covering the trail that we've had lately. Having been up here before, the trail was pretty easy to figure out and find my way, fortunately, and the snow at this point was in the 12 to 14 inch deep range. Definitely snowshoe conditions. Pretty windy today. What a nice fresh trail here on Owl's Head as I sink in about 12 inches. Nice and windy. Definitely the only one in the woods here today. The trail winds around to the left after this first ledge, and for the most part from here it goes straight up to the summit, along the ridge. Pine trees all around that you can see through and enjoy some views throughout the hike up. With only 475 feet of gain on the day, it's a nice gradual and enjoyable trek to the summit. Not too steep, pretty consistent. The wind, however, continued to be relentless as I broke out the trail. Some places the snow was only a few inches deep, and then other places it was a good 15 plus inches deep. And the summit for the most part is in sight throughout the majority of this hike, so it's easy to just walk in that direction as you make your way up this short little Adirondack trail. After a quarter mile walking in a very straight line up the trail, I made my way to one of two ledges to climb up. And I realized on the way back down where the trail actually goes, but since I wasn't following tracks, I just went directly up the ledge, straight up. But of course, such is winter hiking, sometimes making your own trail. Fortunately, climbing this first ledge was not too difficult as I came out on top of another open rock ledge, facing Keene down in the distance, looking to the east while consistent gusts of winds continued blowing the trees around like rag dolls. Woo! It's a bit windy! About to blow me off! It's a bit windy! But, whatever. That's why we have the wind protection. But it is blowing my hat off. It also kept blowing my hat off my head, so that was pretty obnoxious. I certainly needed a better fitting hat. Due to the wind, I hiked today with some wind protection from the start. A North Face shell jacket, which helps shield the wind and keep me slightly warmer from the cold breeze. I also hiked in my North Face water-resistant pants, EMS gaiters, a thermal base layer top and bottom, and my brand new Lake Placid Niner moisture wicking t-shirt. I don't typically include the wind protection from the start, but since today is a short one and the wind was extra strong, it felt like the appropriate decision. Wind and rain protection makes me sweat like crazy, so I typically only put them on towards the summits, but today being a shorty, it was fine and necessary. After climbing the first ledge, I continued breaking trail through a section that had me sinking just below my waist for about 20 yards. Either the snow has really accumulated on this stretch, or this isn't quite the actual trail. Regardless, once climbing and clawing my way out of this waist-deep snow, I was at the bottom of the final ledge climb up to the summit. From this point, and you'll know when you're there, you'll see the summit up above you. The trail goes to the left, up and around the side of the ledge, which again, I took a slight shortcut and went directly straight up. I will say it was a little sketchy at times going the way I did, since there wasn't anything to grab onto, and if my snowshoe slipped, it could have become a problem, but fortunately everything worked out okay. I did, however, go down the correct snow-covered trail on my way down, though. A mini switchback of sorts up the ledge. Ah, yes, I remember this part now, I said to myself. It was all coming back to me from previous trips up here on Owl's Head. Once up on top of this ledge, I was at the summit. This big rocky summit has some scattered sections of trees throughout, making for an excellent summit to spend some time on to take in the scenery. I made it from the trailhead to the summit in just under 20 minutes. I had the whole mountain to myself. Owl's Head, standing 2,122 feet elevation up in the windy, snowy Adirondack sky. And in case you're wondering, yes, there are many different mountains called Owl's Head here in the Adirondacks. Despite the windy, snowy weather, the views were actually great today since the clouds were all sitting above the mountains around me, so I did have full views, which I didn't think I would when I decided to hike today. Since the wind was so strong and relentless, and I was by myself, I only stayed up top for a few minutes before beginning my trek back down the mountain. Once I started back down, I of course noticed a few spots where I was off the actual trail, and I found where the real trail goes. I was always pretty close though, and the way I went seemed to work just as well as anything else. And this trail doesn't have trail markers in case you've never been up here, but it's pretty obvious where to go. And due to the wind and snow today, my tracks heading up the mountain were surprisingly almost completely covered in various spots throughout the descent. So in a matter of only maybe 20 minutes or so, some of my tracks were 100% covered from the snow being blown around by the wind, to give you an idea how hard the wind was blowing. A good thing to keep in mind if you're out hiking in the winter for the first time. In certain conditions, it doesn't take long for your footsteps to be completely covered by snow in a matter of minutes. I continued the 0.5 miles down the trail, trying to step between my footsteps from the ascent in an effort to carve out a bigger, better path for hikers coming up in the next few days. My 24-inch snowshoes are certainly good for that. The descent was quick, and before I knew it, I was back at the first open ledge from the day, looking out at the snow-covered Sentinel Range with the dark, white, stormy clouds above one last time before heading back into the trees for the remainder of the hike. 2:47, I'm almost back down to the trailhead, currently standing on the first big lookout of this hike. I'm currently staring at Pitchoff, Cascade, Porter, and the rest of the Sentinel Range, along with Route 73. It's awesome. Great views, nice and clear as far as the mountains go. You know, clouds everywhere else, but nice views still today. The wind is behind me. It's blowing pretty hard. Time to get back to the car. Shortly after this, I completed the final 0.1 miles and was back in my car, completing my spontaneous sub-1 hour snowy winter afternoon hike here on Owl's Head. A local favorite and a perfect hike for the whole family or someone new to hiking. But of course, only during the weekdays. Well, another successful quick day in the woods here on Owl's Head. A short mountain, visible from Route 73, and a quick way to put yourself in the woods and in the thick of the high peaks with minimal effort. Love this little mountain. Thanks for coming along with me on this quick hike, and if you have a minute, please leave me a review wherever you listen, and give me a follow on Instagram or Facebook at 46 of 46 Podcast. I'd greatly appreciate it. New mountains, new stories, and new episodes coming soon. Remember to always leave no trace, do the rock walk, and if you carry it in, carry it out. Everything, every time, banana peels and all. See you on the trails. Pure ADK is an online community and lifestyle brand that creates Adirondack-inspired apparel and goods. They're all about sharing their adventures and creating quality products that are a reflection of the outdoor lifestyle and activities we love in the Adirondack Mountains. Whether born and raised an Adirondack native or a frequent vacationer, we all have a common bond, those feelings and memories that the Adirondacks evoke in us. As a bonus for listeners of the podcast, they're providing a 15% off discount. When shopping in their online store, use the promo code 46podcast to redeem the offer. PureAdirondacks.com. Check it out.